Hello, welcome back to Path to Wellness with Miriam, and today I'm going to talk about home church. So this is another part, I love every single part of my church experience, and I hope that you get that I can look back and see the positiveness in every single experience that God has given me. Whenever I would visit home, while I was at school, I would visit my parents, of course, and I would go to their house fellowship. I talked about it a few episodes back about how they went through their church detox and they didn't do any church for a while. They found some other believers who also had a lot of church hurt, like my family did. And so because of that, they started just meeting together. And they met together and shared meals, and then it evolved into a little house church. This was so amazing. Okay, I talk about food. Yes, I love food. Food was one of the big things. The food and the fellowship, okay? So here, being at a really big church, really big charismatic church, and then going to small churches, but a church full of old people, and then a church where I was just visiting once in a while, but not really connecting and having friendships. Home church was different. Here was one family I knew already, the other family I was getting to know, and I had gotten to know every time I visited. So when I graduated from school, and came back and started attending all the time, it was just really neat. We either had breakfast all together or a big brunch, or we had a big huge meal around 1 or 2 o'clock, and there was always just lots of food. It was families that just love to cook, families that just love to talk and to get to know you and to share what was going on in their lives, and it was just a really neat experience. As far as the actual worship time, there was one guy who liked to play guitar, another person played piano. And so sometimes we would have piano, sometimes we would have guitar, sometimes we wouldn't even sing at all. And then we would always have a prayer time, and then we would read the Bible. And they were very into, they wanted to read the Bible in context, because sometimes pastors will just pull a couple verses out of the Bible and preach on a topic. And often it doesn't give you a full understanding of what's actually in the Bible or what the passage is about. So the cool thing about reading through the Bible, and they started doing that. I'm trying to remember if they literally started in Genesis and worked all the way through, or what they actually did. But if we read it, we read an entire book at a time. So if we wanted to read Ephesians, for example, we read the whole book of Ephesians. Ephesians only has 6 chapters, so we might have read at least 2 chapters a day, or a week, each time we met together on a Sunday. So we would read it in its entirety, and then we would sit around and we would discuss and we would talk about it. It was a really neat time. One of the guys, he really didn't like liturgy. Liturgy is when you do a set kind of things at a time, first you open with a prayer, and then you sing a song, and then you do this, and then you do that, and then so he really didn't like that. He felt like there needed to be freedom, and so we always mixed it up. So sometimes we would arrive and we'd sing a song, and then we would pray, and then we would read the scripture. Sometimes we would start with reading the scripture. Sometimes we would start with praying. Sometimes we would eat first. Sometimes we would eat afterwards. Sometimes we would just meet together to eat. Sometimes we would skip eating. No, I don't think that ever happened. We were way too much into food. The other thing is, I feel like the most negative about the house church, and I don't really want to speak negatively because everyone are dear friends of mine, we wouldn't meet during holidays, and that was really hard for me. There was one year that Christmas landed on a Sunday, and so we didn't meet together on Christmas, and it was a Sunday, and it was Christmas. We celebrate Jesus on Christmas, and some of the churches in town didn't have church services either, and I don't remember exactly if we ended up visiting a strange church on that Christmas Sunday or if we ended up just staying home, but it was kind of a bummer. My husband and I, well, we were engaged at this point, and then we got married. We had kids, or I should say we had one kid at the time. And when she was a babe or a toddler, we kind of thought maybe we need a little bit more. And part of it was we felt like house church was great for us adults, but we felt like one of the families had younger kids and they just played the whole time and they couldn't really participate in the discussions. And I kind of was like, well, what about when our kids get older? Like, there's nothing geared for them. And so we started visiting other churches in the area, and some of these were churches that I had already visited years ago with my parents, but I just wanted to visit them and see, you know, before my parents were making the decision of whether it was a good church fit or not. And now is my husband and I deciding whether it would be a good fit for our family. So what we did is we went and we visited different churches, and then we kind of decided not to go to other churches and just to come back to house church for a while. So we did that. We came just back to house church for a while and just kind of continued on in what we were doing. And partly because we loved the people we were doing house church with so much, and partly because we couldn't find a church that we felt at home at. There were churches that were just so big that we felt like we were getting lost in, and other churches where we just didn't connect, and that's kind of where we were. So stay tuned for the next part. Bye.